Hey, welcome back to another episode of Razorback Reels. I'm Adam Roberts.
And I'm Aaron Imsall.
Got a lot of great movies for you and a special guest, so stay tuned. We had a, I guess, decent weekend at the movies.
I liked most of these movies for the most part this week. So.
Yeah, there were a couple I didn't care for at all.
Well,
coming up in the second half of the show, we do have a very special guest, Anna Nguyen, writes for the Arkansas Traveler, and will talk to us about some Hong Kong films that you probably haven't seen but should.
Yeah, it's definitely an informational little segment here, so you need to be able to see these movies, and you'll have an idea going in what you're getting. So.
Exactly. But we'll start out with the new releases in theaters this weekend, beginning with Billy, the early years.
You, son, what brings you here tonight, huh? 2,000 years before you were born, God planned for you to be here tonight. You think this is an accident?
Lots of opportunities for budding preachers, Billy.
Preaching?
Would you like to speak at the men's mission?
I don't know the first thing about preaching. For all have sinned. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. And enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and narrow.
All right, Billy, the early years follows the story of Billy Graham's life, at least up until 1949, and it was so disappointing. Apparently there's some sort of biblical injunction against good filmmaking because Christian evangelicals seem to have absolutely no talent in the area of direction or writing. And it's very upsetting because I really like it when people bring their own viewpoints to Hollywood, especially ones that obviously aren't expressed in mainstream cinema very often. So you have stuff like Billy, we had the Genius Club last year that we reviewed, and Fireproof. I mean, when Kirk Cameron is your main star, you've got some major problems. So please, if you're trying to convert people through film evangelism, do everyone a favor, drop out of seminary and go to film school instead. But back on the topic of this specific movie.
And send your hate mail to RazorbackReels.com.
Visit the blog. But I mean, it could have been such a fascinating story, and it ended up just being something you would expect to see at a museum piece where you go. And there's like very little depth to his character at all. The guy who plays him, Armie Hammer, which is his real name apparently. I mean, he just walks around like with the guy with the huge smile from the Zenzite commercials the entire time. I think his smile disappears maybe in 2 scenes. And the bad guys who don't believe in the literal translation of the Bible have scowls on their faces, and they play really dark music. And these serious scenes were very hard not to laugh at because they were so over the top. And I don't know, they tried to frame it by using the device of Charles Templeton, who was Billy Graham's associate who ended up leaving the faith, and they framed it as sort of an Amadeus story where he's playing the role of Salieri, and they really could have worked, but they sort of, the first half of the movie, Templeton's not even in it, so you can't see the contrast between the two characters like they could have done, and everybody's just one-dimensional cutouts. There was practically no character development. There were no arcs in the plot. Everything's just kind of, oh, here's his life story. We'll pick and choose different scenes to show you. The direction was awful. I didn't give it an F because I do like it when they try and bring viewpoints that aren't usually expressed in Hollywood out, but it was hard to find very many good things to say about the movie.
Yeah, I kind of get that sense that maybe you didn't like it too much.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it, so I have nowhere to speak, but I wasn't too interested, I'll be honest.
It's meant to be constructive criticism, but it's hard to know even where to begin because everything was wrong.
Yeah, well. Enough for Billy the early years. Fortunately, we had a better movie also. We have Body of Lies.
Ed Hoffman would rather have less information than share what he has with me.
Well, this is not Ed Hoffman. This is not my predecessor. This is me, sir. Please help me.
I have one rule. If we are to cooperate, my dear, never lie to me. Understand? Never lie to me.
All right, Body of Lies is the new Ridley Scott film starring Russell Crowe and Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's another film that depicts the Middle East and the Iraq, post 9/11 Iraq situation. And unfortunately, these movies never do good at the box office. But I really think this movie is better than what we've seen recently. It really kind of depicts this relationship between this real scumbag guy played by Russell Crowe, who is willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to win and for his own cause. And Leo is like an undercover agent in Iraq, and he's got this really crappy beard at the beginning that looks really fake. But don't worry, it goes down, and he shaves it down at one point in the film. But Leo is really good in this. I really like Leo's character in this, and I thought Russell Crowe was really good as a scumbag. In this movie, I think, strides the line between action and being able to use like diplomatic relationships in this, depicting, you know, like certain, you know, serious political agendas here as well, and mixing it well with the action. I thought it was back and forth, so you didn't get too tired of one, you know, before you're like, okay, I'm not bored. I mean, I wasn't bored by this movie. I was interested. I was enthralled till the end. I really like this.
Right. I mean, it has a couple good plot twists that I really enjoyed, but I think that it didn't go as far enough with the Russell Crowe character as it should have. I forget his name. But I did enjoy it. I would recommend it. These movies keep doing very poorly at the box office, even though I think that at least half of them are very good. And the Body of Lies is pretty much, it didn't have to be set in the Middle East to begin with. It was a Cold War story. You could have just replaced everything with Russia and Ukraine and then switched the names around into a Russian accent instead, and you could use the exact same plot. And it'd probably even make more sense, since I don't know how many defectors Al-Qaeda actually has. But overall, I did enjoy this. I'd recommend it. It's a good thriller, you know, a lot better than Eagle Eye was with the whole government conspiracy.
Yeah, destroys Eagle Eye, literally.
Right. Much more believable, too.
Right off the screen. Yeah, it is more believable. Despite all these weird plot twists and weird situations going on internally, way more believable.
Right. There's never really a point where I was like, no, they'd never do that. It was always like, okay, I can
it seems like this stuff could really happen. And you're like, wow, you're thinking, is this really what's going on, you know, over there? And also I like, there's just a subplot with kind of a romance that Leo has with an Iranian girl living in Jordan. And some people didn't like this subplot. I kind of liked it. I thought it tied up at the end. I was a little leery at first, but I thought it tied up at the end.
That one I didn't like. I didn't find that romance very believable at all.
You and all the other stuffy critics out there.
I just like to get to know somebody for more than 2 30-second scenes before I'm willing to sacrifice my life for them.
The movie was already over 2 hours, Adam. They couldn't go too long, all right? I know you would want the miniseries version. We'll spread it out over a week, but you know they had to cut these up, cut it short here. I enjoyed it. I thought she was very good in the role, and I kind of believed that he would fall in love with her that quick. I mean, she expressed that kind of emotion. But anyways.
All right, but great acting great performances from two guys who really never do a poor job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought this was a quality film, and one of the best of the recent Middle East films that have been out for sure.
Well, speaking of great acting, The Duchess had quite a couple tremendous performances as well.
Yeah, I agree.
One has to accept one's responsibility.
All right, The Duchess with Keira Knightley and Ralph Fiennes had just tremendous performances from both of those actors. I mean, there's already been huge Oscar buzz about this movie in the acting categories. Follows the story of Princess Diana. The Duchess of Devonshire, and she goes to live with this guy who's just, you know, a huge jerk to women. It really explores about how women were treated in the society, and it reminded me a lot of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, only instead of in the future, it's in the past. It had pretty much all the same themes. And this was really marketed in England as a Princess Diana film. I mean, the character that Keira Knightley plays is an ancestor of Princess Di, and I suppose there are some parallels, though I'm not sure Prince Charles was quite as bad as Fiennes in this
Gosh, I
movie.
hope he wasn't that big of a scumbag.
He is so great at playing villains. I mean, he had Mongoth and Schindler's List, and Lord Voldemort.
Voldemort, he who must not be named. But yeah, I mean, Ralph Fiennes is such a scumbag in this. It's like, is this guy for real?
I was trying to feel bad for him, but
you never feel bad for him. He has like this one soft scene where he feels bad for forcing himself upon her.
Right.
And you're like, no, I don't feel nice about it. You're not trying to be a good guy, but But Keira Knightley was so fantastic in this. She was really able to express this, innocent emotion to me. It's like a chronological order here of her emotions, where you start off, she's innocent and, naive, and she just, this is a duke who wants to marry me, and she just wants to party at the beginning, enjoy all the parties and everything, like something out of Marie Antoinette. And then, and then all of a sudden she starts realizing, maybe my new Duke husband here isn't that great of a guy, and he doesn't like to talk, he doesn't like to socialize, and he's really just this big scumbag, just wants to use me as a baby factory. And that's pretty much what happens. But he was so horrible, but she was able to overcome, all this, and Georgiana, or G as they would call her.
Right.
And I don't know, it was just, I didn't expect to like this movie as much as I did. In the past, have been kind of opposed to period pieces, but I don't know. Keira Knightley's winning me over because she's such a great actress.
I mean, she's probably the best period piece actress that we've probably ever seen.
That's all she does anymore now.
I would like to see her branch. She did Domino a while back.
Yeah, 05.
A long ways back. I think that she does have enough talent where she could branch out into some other types of films, but I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, she's gonna play Ophelia, I think.
That's what I was trying to remember what it was that was coming out
so
soon.
she's keeping in her wheelhouse there. So, but no, she's a great actress. In this, I think she'll get another Best Actress nom for this. I think she deserves it.
I mean, I enjoyed the direction in this too. I think maybe it was a little bit too long. With pretty much every movie I've ever seen, I would cut off the last 5 minutes. But
I would have. This is nitpicking, but I would have enjoyed a little more sweeping shots of the scenery. It seemed like they did a lot of quick shots and quick takes throughout this movie. But
that's true.
It had some great. It's some of the same scenery you've seen like Pride and Prejudice in places in Derbyshire and that area, Devonshire.
Right.
But
and it seemed like they were shooting on location. They could have taken more advantage of that.
Yeah, that's all. But I mean, that's a nitpicking. The costumes were great in this as usual as period pieces, but it was great.
And Keira Knightley always in great costumes.
Definitely.
Well, The Express is one that Aaron got to see this weekend.
Express.
I didn't.
Beautiful day, isn't it? But Schwartzwalder, he's one of the best coaches in college ball.
What are you smiling at?
Right about now, I bet you're wondering what happened to that nice gentleman that begged you to come here, huh?
Hey! Come on, let's go.
What are you guys studying?
A little bit of everything.
We're on the football team.
In that.
I don't really know too much about football.
Neither does he. Can't let him treat you like that.
All right, The Express is the new inspirational, heartfelt, sad sports movie of the year. It's the story about Ernie Davis, who won the Heisman, first African-American to win the Heisman Trophy, and he won it in 1961. And it's about his trial from as a little boy overcoming stuttering to getting into college at Syracuse University and dealing with, of course, racism during the early civil rights era. And basically it's about what he overcame in order to become a star football player, despite all the hatred that he was enduring. And also, in this movie, I don't think it's any secret. It's a true story. It's already happened, but it kind of has a tragic ending in this. And it's about how greatness cuts to tragedy despite all that he's accomplished. And now Dennis Quaid plays the coach in this, and I think Dennis Quaid was a highlight of this film. Dennis Quaid is like a sports journeyman now. Every time he took over for Kevin Costner, because now when you need a good sports guy to be the star in your movie, go to Dennis Quaid. And he plays this kind of coach that's, this movie is not changing anything. He plays this coach that, had one point of view, and then Ernie Davis kind of changed his mind about how to be as a coach and react. And Adam, this movie is not going to be any different than maybe what you've seen in the past with movies. It does kind of stick to that formula.
Right.
But I think it does a good job of sticking to that formula and succeeding. You actually feel for Ernie Davis. You feel for what's going on. Now, is this movie completely accurate? Apparently not, according to what we hear.
That's what I've heard. The people in West Virginia are awfully upset because a game set there where all the fans are racist in history actually happened at Syracuse. But it's Hollywood, a plot takes precedent over historical accuracy.
Yeah, it's not quite historical, but I don't know. You feel some emotion in this. You feel for the character. And the guy that played Ernie Davis, I think his name's Rob Brown.
Yeah, right, Rob Brown.
He was in Finding Forrester. He was the kid from Finding Forrester, and he's been in some other movies like Coach Carter, but I thought he was pretty good in this as well. I thought he did a good job.
I was trying to remember where I'd seen him from.
And my man from Miracle at St. Anna, the guy that carried around the head, he was in this as well. He kind of had a supporting role, but I was glad to see him get more work.
Find out where his career is.
I was glad to see him get more work, so I wasn't on that. But I liked The Express. Didn't love it. I mean, I think it could have been better, but C+ I think is a good grade. I mean, it's worth seeing. Maybe rent it, but
I'm sure my friends will force me to see it. But
yeah.
We'll move on to a movie that has slightly different tone. Quarantine.
Apartment's about to begin the rescue process. Police say that she lives alone. She's not very social.
We're here to help you. Ma'am?
Oh, God! Oh, my God! We have to get out of here! We have to get
All right, Quarantine. It's Cloverfield only in an apartment building. Pretty much this camera crew gets trapped inside this building where everybody in the audience figures out about an hour before the characters do that there's zombies patrolling everywhere. And it was pretty dumb. There was a guy about 6 or 7 rows behind me just making sarcastic comments, and usually nothing makes me more angry than that, but he saved my evening because otherwise I would have been bored out of my mind. And there was one scene where, fairly near the end, where I think they fight like 10 zombies in a row just all at once, and it got so repetitive I just didn't care anymore if I did in the beginning. It relied more on boom, here's a scary noise, than it did on any sort of suspense building up.
Well, I agree. This movie was completely reliant on the fact that Cloverfield did so well at the box office. They're like, whoa, Cloverfield did great, so now we're going to go with our version and make it more of a horror film, Quarantine, and bring it out in October. But I actually thought this movie, not a great film, not what I would call a quality cinematic masterpiece by any means, but I thought it was pretty scary, and I'm pretty immune to horror films these days. I've seen a lot, and I've appreciated a lot of really bad ones as well to the best I could. But I thought this was pretty scary despite the stupid plot points, and a lot of the characters were a little ridiculous and they're overacting.
Like their plan is, look, there's zombies hiding around, we should run up and give them hugs. That will solve the problem. I mean, that was their plan at one point.
I also had a great heckler behind me as well, so I'm glad to know this movie's really bringing back movie heckling. Our guy was really vocal about what he wanted the characters to do to the zombies. And I actually kind of like the lead character in this, who's the girl, Jennifer Carpenter. She plays Dexter's sister on Dexter, and she's great in that.
I've ever seen. But
maybe she's not a great journalist, but she's a great scream queen. She was also Emily Rose in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and she screamed like crazy in that. And she brings the scream in this too. Wow. And this movie I thought had some really creepy, freaky moments.
I think we'll both agree it wasn't too great though. But we're going to go to a quick break. Be sure to stay with us.
It was scary.
We have a guest coming up, talk to us about some Hong Kong films, Anna Nguyen. But we have a trivia question to think about while you're using the restroom during the break. Who is the only actor to receive 4 consecutive Best Actor nominations? Russell Crowe only got 3, so it's not him. Take a guess.
Apparecciato la tavola? No apparecciato la tavola. Letto un libro. Letto. No, 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 no.
Oh, it was such a heartwarming film about 2 brothers and a boy and his father.
But they really represent sort of the neo-existentialist way of thinking.
All right, and the answer is Marlon Brando. He's the only guy to get 4 Best Actor nominations in a row.
Well deserving. One of my favorite actors of all time, for sure.
Definitely, yeah. On the Waterfront in the mix, and Streetcar Named Desire.
Viva Zapata.
And Julius Caesar.
Boom.
Not in that order. Well, welcome back to Razorback Reels, and we have a very special guest with us here tonight, Anna Nguyen, the Arkansas traveler.
Hello.
And, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
And, she's the lifestyles editor for the Traveler and also writes a bi-weekly column that you can check out, Cinematic Musings. So I hope you'll do so. And tonight we're just going to talk a little bit about some films from Hong Kong. So you can introduce one of your favorite directors.
Right. I have an obsession with Wong Kar-Wai. He's an Hong Kong auteur, but he's very well known internationally as well, especially in Europe. And I should say Ashes of Time is my favorite film, but I really have a penchant for In the Mood for Love because it's so gorgeous and it features my 2 favorite thespians in it, Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, both who won the Cannes Film Festival Award in 2000 and 2004 respectively. So.
Right, I enjoyed it a lot. And I think we have some clips to show too. says Days of Being Wild, and it's sort of the first in this trilogy.
Yeah, it's a backward glance in 1960s Hong Kong. It really introduces Su Li Chung, who is Maggie Cheung's character, one of the main protagonists in The Mood for Love, and she's featured as kind of unlucky in love, I would say. And then we see how her emotions will be played out in The Mood for Love.
Right, I mean, I haven't seen this one. I've heard it described as sort of maybe rebel without a cause for Hong Kong.
Yeah, Leslie Chung, he's a really good actor as well. He passed away in 2001, but he plays Yuddy, and he's just this major playboy reminiscent of James Dean and Marlon Brando. Sure. And they're just really compatible on screen, I think.
So what are some of the stylistic differences that he brings? It has a very unique style.
Yeah, I think Days of Being Well was Wong Kar-Wai's first collaboration with Christopher Doyle, who is a really well-known cinematographer. He's worked with Gus Van Sant and many other international directors. But that was their first collaboration, and it's really fast-paced, which is a juxtaposition with the slow pace of movies, as you can tell by the storyline and the dialogue and the music and such. And I think he really likes to focus on aesthetics. As you can see, all of his films are really gorgeous. And the music's wonderful, and then the wardrobe is almost perfect, and you know.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the unique thing about all the Wong Kar-Wai films. Wait, what is it? Wong Kar-Wai?
Yes,
Wong Kar-Wai films is that they always have this, unique, like you said, style to them and feel to them, and that's what I think really separates it from, the whole genre is its uniqueness. And that's, I've only seen 2046, which we're going to get to in a minute, but that was one thing that really stood out for me in this film.
A lot of people say it's basically like his films are just an iteration of one particular story, and I do agree with that. But I think if you see it, Days of Being Well, In the Mood for Love, and 2046 as a trilogy, it makes sense. And I don't think that criticism is too much of a negative aspect in his films, really. So. And
In the Mood for Love was released in 2000, and I mean the music in this was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good, I think, introduction or fusion of Eastern or Western music and Chinese music, because it's Cho Sung was an opera singer back in the 40s, and a lot of music was featured in it.
Right, so it's sort of a sequel?
It's sort of. If you watch Days of Being Well, Mr. Chow, played by Tony Leung, is introduced at the very end of Days of Being Well. It's an infamous scene that they included, which alludes to the characters in The Mood for Love. So.
And of course the story behind this is two couples, their spouses are having affairs with each other, and they're next door neighbors.
And I guess they go through the self-tormenting of role-playing how it happened, because I guess they can't understand how it happened, and they want to learn how it happened. And then, it gets into lofty relationships between the two and stuff. But, it keeps being repeated that they don't want to repeat the mistakes of their spouses. But we kind of see that doesn't really happen, and emotions are kind of saddened.
It was really interesting how they'd have these cuts where she'd just be wearing a different outfit, so you'd be like, well, is it the same thing, different day, or what's it
I think that's a trick that he uses, a trick in which it's the same motion, but you're supposed to understand that time passed, and it's just she's doing the same routine that she's been doing. And I think that's really, if you think about life, is kind of like that. It's basically, you're doing something that's really routine and stuff, and I find that aspect realistic and enjoyable to watch. So.
Yeah, and then the next one in the series was 2046, which takes kind of the tone of where it kind of goes into what makes you think he's writing a story that goes into the future or possibly another dimension. I wasn't really quite sure when I watched it. Actually, it was kind of unclear where exactly was going on in that sense. But again, this movie brings that same style, and it's also like the third part of the series.
It should be seen as directly after In the Mood for Love, but we see that Mr. Chow is more. He's more of a, how would you say, a playboy, really.
Right.
He's not married anymore, and he's kind of delving to these sexual fantasies and relationships that he's not committed to. But 2046 is significant because it was a room that he and Su Li Chung stayed in The Mood for Love. There's a big sign that said 2046, and I think he's trying to, the tagline goes is that he's trying to write about the future, but he's actually writing about the past, meaning that he can't really let go of his past memories. So. And
this was like the story in this. I'm really glad that I watched In the Mood for Love just before, because it made a lot more sense.
Yeah, I wish I had. I unfortunately didn't, but Yeah, that whole relationship of him kind of longing for what he had lost. I mean, that was, I think, the critical point that I really, brought from that is that was just such a emotional, part of the movie. It was, I don't know, it was really good.
And I think I read he was trying to take a page from Vertigo with Alfred Hitchcock.
Right, he was really inspired. Actually, In the Mood for Love kind of had that kind of allusions to it. But I think it really played out in 2046. So.
Right, definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole interludes that they have when he's writing the different stories about he's in this room or year or dimension 2046, just comes in between different scenes of just regular life, I guess you would call it. And the story's told not entirely linearly, so it's it can be a challenge to watch. You have to focus on it when you're watching, but it was definitely worth it for me.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think he went afterwards he did My Blueberry Nights, is that right? Which went into the first American film and didn't quite live up to what people were hoping.
I didn't like it. I just thought for a Wong Kar-Wai film it was really ordinary, average. And I mean,
to dub it down for us Americans.
I don't know. The soundtrack, of course, was impeccable, but just the storyline kind of left you yearning for something a bit more, especially after you watch all his great films. And if you watch My Blueberry Nights, I think you should also watch Chungking Express, which is a 1994 film with Tony Leung again and the Hong Kong singer Faye Wong, and it's almost about the same kind of story, but Chungking Express is just more amazing, I would say. I think it was really a critical point in which Wong Kar-Wai really told everybody that he was a good storyteller.
Yeah, and Chungking Express was actually re-released in the late '90s through Quentin Tarantino, who tried to release it in order to get it more exposure.
Right.
And he did make a martial arts film that was just re-released on DVD this week.
That was it's actually my favorite movie, but I can't let go from the movie. But yeah, it features a big cast, a great big cast of great Hong Kong actors, and it's everyone that he works with, from Maggie Chung to Leslie Chung to Tony Leung, and it's just a great martial arts epic. I guess it's really electrifying. You might get lost in it, but it's based on a martial arts novel by Louis Cha, who's a really famous writer in Hong Kong, in China in general.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
you.
It
was wonderful
Appreciate it.
We learned a lot. And you can read her Cinematic Musings columns every other Monday in The Traveler. And you can check out his movies at the library as soon as I return them. So thank you so much for coming on again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll see all of you next week. We have some very interesting
Sex
movies.
Drive, W, Max Payne.
And we also will have a special guest.
Dr. Frank Scheid's going to be here as well, who's one of the professors here at U of A in the communications department. So.
Authored some books about Charlie Chaplin, so that'll be fun to see. Of course, thanks as always to our friends at AMC Fiesta Square 16. You get $4 movies anytime, Monday through Thursday, and $4 movies before 4 o'clock.
And all the indie releases are usually there too. So.
See you later. I'm Adam Roberts.
And I'm Aaron Emsall.
Thank you.